Congratulations! If you're watching this video, chances are that you've recently purchased a Marvel 8 Mark III bandsaw. The 8 Mark III is the latest version of the world's most popular and most versatile metal cutting saw. In this video, we've put together a basic overview of the installation, operation, and maintenance procedures for the 8 Mark III. This video is designed to accompany the operator's manual and to illustrate some of the procedures it describes. It is not intended to take the place of the operator's manual. Remember that all industrial machinery can be dangerous if not operated and maintained properly. Be sure to carefully read and follow all of the safety messages and instructions listed in the operator's manual and other technical information provided, as well as those posted on the machine itself before attempting to install, operate, or maintain your machine. In addition, be sure to follow all of applicable federal, state, and local safety regulations and safety procedures, such as lockout, tagout. A thorough knowledge of the operation of this machine and the hazards it presents is your best protection against injury. Now, let's get started with some tips on installing the 8 Mark III. When your saw arrives, it will be skidded, crated, and braced for shipment. The crate can be removed at any time, but the saw should remain on the skid until positioned for installation. No special machine foundation is required for installation. However, a dry, level concrete floor in good condition is best. When positioning your saw, choose a well-lit area. Allow sufficient space for the loading and unloading of material, and provide easy access to those areas that may require maintenance and repair. Be sure all of the doors and access panels can open without interference. Following the procedures described in your owner's manual, uncrate the saw and remove it from the shipping skid. The machine is now ready to be leveled and anchored. Leveling is extremely important for consistent, accurate cutting. Follow the instructions in your owner's manual to level and anchor your saw. The saw should be level from side to side and from front to back. The saw's 4 leveling screws are designed to accept anchor bolts. If you wish to anchor your saw to the floor, spacing dimensions and hole sizes are shown on the technical drawing that comes with the saw. After the machine is in position, remove the 4 eye bolts from the saw table and the red shipping brace that secures the saw column. You should also remove all of the rust inhibitor that was applied to the saw prior to shipment. After the saw is leveled and anchored, the saw components can be assembled. Place the chip pan on top of the coolant reservoir so that the V-shaped cutout in the pan is at the front of the machine and with the chip pan positioned tight against the front end of the reservoir. Slide the chip pan and coolant reservoir between the front legs of the saw until they are centered between the legs. Next, adjust the angle iron door supports so that they rest on top of the chip pan. Place the coolant pump in the coolant reservoir, hooking the tabs of the pump housing over the edges of the reservoir. You are now ready to connect the flushing hose and the coolant line to the pump outlet. If you ordered optional roller tables with your 8 Mark III, you can assemble them by following the instructions that are included in the shipping boxes. You are now ready to connect the main power to the saw. Remember that all electrical wiring must be done by a qualified electrician. Connect the main power to the disconnect switch and the ground wire to the electrical panel as described in the owner's manual. If your saw came with the optional digital tilt readout, you will need to calibrate it at this time. First, be sure that your column is positioned so that the saw blade is at 90 degrees to the table surface. Then press and release the button on the back of the tilt readout to set the tilt to 0 degrees. Prior to operating the saw, you will need to install a blade. First, move the saw column to the fully retracted position. Then, bring the column to the vertical position. Next, disconnect the saw from the main power supply and lock the disconnect switch in the off position. Remove the access door on the lower right side of the saw. Use caution when opening the upper band wheel door, as a broken blade may spring out from behind the door as it's opened. Unclip the rotation handle that is behind the upper blade guide block. Lower it and use it to pivot the blade guide 90 degrees so that the blade teeth are facing you. Release the tension on the blade by operating the blade tension air ratchet. Remove the worn or broken blade from the saw. Uncoil a new blade and hold it so that the teeth on the left-hand side are facing you and pointing down. Lower the bottom loop of the blade through the opening in the saw table and place the upper loop around the upper band wheel. Insert the right side of the blade into the guard that runs along the saw column and insert the left side into the upper and lower blade guide blocks. Do not pivot the blade guides at this time. Place the lower loop of the blade around the lower band wheel, making sure that the blade teeth are behind the chip brush. Change the directional switch on the blade tension air ratchet and operate the ratchet until the blade is under enough tension to prevent it slipping off the wheels. Check to see that the back edge of the blade is approximately 1/32 away from the flanges on the back of both band wheels. Rotate the blade guide handles and lock them into place so that the blade is twisted 90 degrees with the teeth facing forward. Operate the blade tension air ratchet to tension the blade completely. When the blade is fully tensioned, the built-in torque limiter will stop the rotation of the tension screw. Turn the blade mode switch to the track position. Push the power push button to restore power to the saw. Then, press and hold the start blade push button. The blade will run at low speed so that the tracking can be observed. Close the upper blade guard and band wheel door and replace the side access door, making sure that the safety interlock key fits into the interlock biddy. Now would be a good time to familiarize yourself with the new saw controls. All of the controls for the 8 Mark III are located on or adjacent to the operator's control panel. Located on the upper left-hand corner of the control panel is the blade speed control knob, which is used to set the blade speed from 50 to 450 feet per minute. To the right of the speed control knob is the power push button. This push button allows the control system to be powered, providing that all of the safety interlocks are in place. When the power is on, the power push button will be illuminated and the machine's work light will come on. To the right of the power push button is the stop push button. This large red push button interrupts power to the coolant pump, blade drive, column feed, and column tilt motors, causing these functions to stop. The next button over is the start cycle push button, which starts the blade turning and the column feeding forward. Next to the start cycle button is the blade mode selector switch. This is a 3-position key operated switch. The 3 positions are the change position, which allows the operator to remove the key, preventing the saw from starting with a broken blade. The run position, which allows for normal operation of the saw, and the track position, which allows the blade drive motor to operate at low speed with the band wheel access doors open so that the blade tracking can be checked. If you purchase the power column tilt option with your machine, it will come with a tilt selector switch. This is a 3-position selector switch with a spring return center position. When the switch is turned, the column will tilt in the direction indicated, with the tilt speed increasing as the switch is turned past the slow setting to the fast setting. When the switch is released, the column stops tilting. The first switch on the left-hand side of the lower row is the column forward position. This push button engages the blade feed system motor and blade feed clutch, moving the column forward. The next switch to the right is the cycle interrupt column retract push button. When this button is momentarily pushed, the blade and column feed both stop. When this push button is pushed and held down, the blade stops and the column retracts. The next switch over is the column auto retract selector switch. This is a 2-position on-off switch. When it is in the off position, the column will stop when it reaches the column forward position. When it's in the on position, the column travel will stop after it reaches the column forward position. Then the column will automatically return. There are 2 switches on the panel that control the saw coolant. If you purchase the mist lubrication option, your saw will be equipped with a coolant system selector switch, which allows you to select either the standard flood coolant system or the optional mist coolant system. Whichever system you select, it will be controlled by the 3-position coolant selector switch. In the off position, neither the coolant pump nor the mist lubrication system will run. In the on position, the coolant pump or mist system will run continuously, and in the auto position, the coolant pump or mist system will run only when the blade is running. The control panel also features a message light, which is used to alert the operator to problems with the saw. A flashing light will indicate a drive fault. To reset the fault, turn the machine disconnect off. Wait 15 seconds, then restart the machine. A solid light indicates that one of the door interlocks has been opened and that the blade needs to be tracked. On the far right side of the control panel, you'll find the feed force display gauge, which displays the amount of force that is applied during the cut. The amount of feed force is set with the feed force adjustment knob, which is located on the right-hand side of the operator's control station. The feed force can be set from 0 to 250 pounds. Some of the other adjustments that come with the 8 Mark III include the upper guide arm positioning, which is done by loosening the upper blade guide clamp knob, then turning the upper blade guide crank handle. The coolant flow valve, which controls the flow of coolant to the blade guides, is accessed through a cutout in the left upper blade door. Operation. Before operating your 8 Mark III, be sure to read, understand, and follow all of the safety procedures described in your owner's manual. Before attempting to cut any type of metal with your new saw, be sure to familiarize yourself with the proper blade speeds, feed rates, blade type, and tooth size for the type of material you will cut. Be sure to review the pre-operation checklist shown in your owner's manual. Remember, to avoid serious injury, never operate a broken or damaged saw, a saw with missing parts, or a saw that has been altered in any way. Never operate a saw with guides or covers removed. Turn the machine's power off with the main electrical disconnect switch and lock it in the off position before adjusting, servicing, or cleaning the saw. Before making a cut, be sure all of the settings are adjusted to the proper settings for the material being cut, and tilt the saw frame to the desired angle. Position the workpiece to the desired length of cut, and be sure it is clamped firmly in the vise. Position the upper guide arm as close to the workpiece as possible. Press the column retract push button to fully retract the column. Then press the start blade push button. As the blade begins the cut, check to be sure there is adequate clearance between the upper blade guard and the workpiece. If at any time you need to stop the cut, simply press the cycle interrupt column retract push button to stop the blade and retract the column. Always refer to your owner's manual if you have any questions about proper cutting procedures.